Today's show is brought to you by our new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. Week 5 wraps up in Duval with the Chiefs headed to play the Jags. We got a lot going on, and I gotta be honest, I love Kansas City. This weekend opened up for them. The AFC feels wide open right now, and the Chiefs haven't lost to the Jags since 2009. I don't like them to cover this game. I like them to win it by double digits. Do you know that Kareem Hunt, he's found the end zone in 6 straight October games? You got Patrick Mahomes. He's thrown for 272 yards in 7 consecutive Week 5 games. Even Hollywood Brown, he's reached the end zone in 5 straight Week 5 games. These guys are hot, and these guys are hot in Week 5. So if you haven't tried your first bet on Hard Rock Bet, there's still time to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Just place a $5 bet, and if it hits, you not only get your winnings, but $150 in extra bonus bets. Download the Hard Rock Sportsbook app and make your first deposit today. What a day. What a day of football. What a weekend of football, actually. From Arch Manning to James Franklin to Mike Vrabel and Drake Maye. What a win. I almost said career definer. The career's young. A early career moment for Drake Maye and Vrabel and Josh McDaniels. Massive win by the Patriots. New England goes into Buffalo Sunday Night Football as a big underdog. I think it was 8.5 points, and wins the game outright. Game-winning field goal. I guess technically they got the ball back, but it was, game-winning field goal, 20 seconds left. Massive win by the Pats. A lot else going on. We had the Philadelphia Eagles, who just, from Jalen and A.J. Brown, it's just like the never-ending cycle of controversy. We'll dive into that. Baker and Sam Darnold played one of the most entertaining games I can ever remember. Couple other things in college football I definitely want to hit on, from Franklin to Arch to my guy Tim Skipper, who took down James Franklin. And then the Mark Sanchez story is one of the craziest things that I've ever read in recent memory, especially that involves a broadcaster, that's for sure. So before we dive into some football, I got to tell you about my friends. I got to tell you about my partners, the official ticketing app of this podcast, GameTime, best in the business. Do you want to go to one of these games? Do you want to go? I actually went to dinner last week with a diehard Bills fan from Buffalo. He said he's been going to games since the late 80s and just, lives for this team. And I know whoever you live for, if you want to go watch your team, what have I been telling you guys about playoff baseball? It's an incredible environment. If you live in an area where playoff baseball is going down and you want to go to one of these games, I even saw when I was flipping channels to turn on Sunday Night Football after I recorded on with Colin, it was Warriors-Lakers. The NBA's back. Basketball is back. I saw Bryce James, who's playing at the University of Arizona. You got college basketball back in the mix. Sports galore right now. Any event you want to go to, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code JOHN, that's JOHN, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. What a win. When Gerard Mayo was fired, literally 5 seconds after the season, guys had been on thin ice when the final game ends and the PR statement by the team is released before the guy even gets to the locker room. Like, that guy had been fired for probably a week. But firing Gerard Mayo, going with Mike Vrabel, was about trying to be good right away. and was about investing in this young quarterback and building around him. And last year, and I treated Drake Maye the same way I did Caleb. It was hard with any stats that I saw because most of the games had a similar path. Getting your ass kicked early, down big, going into the second half, and putting up meaningless stats. We could see the physical attributes. Drake May's big. He's got a good arm. He's mobile. Seems like just, I mean, got a lot going for him. Everyone likes him. Like, I get it. Like, I understood drafting him. But being a good quarterback and taking all those attributes and turning them into winning, there's a big gap, right? There have been a lot of guys with good attributes that haven't been good at quarterback. Because hell, we see it all the time in college football. How often do we see 4 and 5 star guys that we hear about and then they actually play? You're like, yeah, I just don't see it. It's no different than guys that get drafted high coming into the NFL. And then you're watching tonight on the road in that environment. Drake Maye, I mean, had the best game and most important game of his young career. And he was awesome. And as Collinsworth said, you can't keep letting him go to his right because when he was running to his throwing side, he was making play after play after play. And here's the other thing. It's hard to be a really good young player. Hell, it's hard to be a good quarterback and put up good stats if you don't have talent around you. It's borderline impossible. Hell, Patrick Mahomes maintained winning these last couple years, and his stats fell off a cliff, right? For you to be a productive quarterback and throw 250, 300 yards, throw a lot of touchdowns, you need a good offensive coordinator and you need talent around you. And right now, clearly the best offensive weapon is a guy that tore his ACL last year. Now, Diggs, his motivation coming into this game against the Bills, clearly, I mean, he was fired up for this bad boy, and he dominated. And in the peak of his career, I don't know where he ranked, depending on the year and who was good at that given time. He clearly was a high end player, and you can't teach what he has. His instincts for playing the position are pretty special. His skills in terms of his ball skills, his hands, his catching radius, his ability with the ball in his hands are pretty special. Even though coming off the injury, he's probably not what he was 5 years ago, but relative to the group he's playing with, he's in a different universe. And he made a dramatic difference tonight. He was awesome. And Drake's no dummy. Keep throwing that guy the football. And they force fed him the ball, and it paid dividends all throughout the night. But if you would have told me at the beginning of the day that the Patriots are going to win and Drake Maye would not throw for a touchdown and their running backs would combine for less than like 60 yards on the ground, I would be like, I don't think that's possible. I even thought in the first half, and listen, the game was pretty ugly because of the turnovers, but it's not like the Patriots were taking advantage of the turnovers. It's like, well, how the Bills, Josh threw a bad pick, they had a fumble, and the Patriots are up 13-0. I mean, it was 3-3 with 4 seconds left to go in the first half. Now, my inclination at the end of the half was like, I think you just got to go put all your chips in the middle of the table and play for a touchdown. Because at the end of the day, you're playing Josh Allen on the road. You're a big underdog. And I think if Mike Vrabel, I mean, not literally right now, but if after the course of maybe a beer or two, he could relax, he'd say, John, the reason that's a dumb logic is because, one, we're in this game as big underdogs. But if we do get stuffed, right, if we either run 2 plays or even tell Drake, hey, this quick out or, whatever, it's, kind of like a flat route, but I mean, technically he's in the end zone. If we just allow it to materialize, they're going to be 0 seconds on, even though the likelihood of him catching it because he doesn't have to rush the throw is much higher, but he could still drop it. He could still trip. A lot of different variables. If we come away with nothing, it's really deflating for us. And we're just handing them some momentum and positive vibes heading into halftime. So it wasn't worth it. And I thought for a moment when they were driving at the end of the game, the Bills in this situation, if they scored a touchdown and won, Mike Vrabel was going to be kicking himself for not being more aggressive in that spot. They ended up holding them to a field goal, and obviously it paid off for them. But I do think big picture when you're playing some of these guys, and you gotta lean aggressiveness. And for the most part, they did, and they were aggressive all night. They were taking shots. Drake was running around making plays, but you're just watching Josh Allen like every other play scramble around. And listen, this is the one downfall of the Bills. They do feel kind of like an NBA team, and Josh is their Nikola Jokic. And when he has 40, 20, and 17, you'll probably win 90% of those games. But there are going to be games where he has like 30, 10, and 7, and you might lose by a couple points. And that's what it felt like tonight because Josh is running around making these crazy plays, doing everything humanly possible to keep you in games. He would scramble right, and then he would juke a guy out and cut it back left to just keep a pass play alive. I mean, even the one play in the second half that he did that threw across his body, across the field with, over Christian Gonzalez in the back of the end zone. Keon Coleman high points it like he's back at Florida State in that opening game against LSU. He's out of bounds, but it was an incredible catch. Christian Gonzalez got to be thinking, like, I'm all over this dude. But ultimately, it was like all this effort for nothing. And that's what it feels like at times when they get in some of these moments. And even Collinsworth said, like, hey, when they're in shotgun, they pass 70% of the time. When they're under center, they're running 70% of the time. And when you're really good, which I appreciate, you're basically like, you might know kind of what we're going to do, but we're better than you and you can't stop us. But there are going to be times where if the other team is making plays, like a little trickeration, some creativity, besides just, hey, Josh, and he could do this more often than not. He's done it earlier this season. He obviously did it week 1, against the Ravens back when they had a real team. He's been doing it for years in the playoffs. He did it last year against the Chiefs in the regular season, against the Ravens in the postseason. There comes a point in time where it's like, hey, just bail us out. No, it's just might not be possible. And it doesn't come through and you lose a game like this. Now, I was also doing the math. If you win 4 out of 5 games, you will be 12-3 going into the last 2 games of the season, which would put you in pretty good shape. And right now, the Bills are fine. I do think the way they're talked about, and I would love to see them make it to the Super Bowl, win the AFC, and win the Super Bowl. I think it would be great for the fan base. They're not like their quarterback is incredible, but the rest of their team, and I know they're missing one of their star defensive linemen, but their offense is a well-oiled machine. But it's not exactly like they got Jerry Rice or LaDainian Tomlinson or, Travis Kelce in his prime running around out there. They got good players. Keon Coleman is a solid up-and-coming player. Khalil Shakir is a dependable slot receiver. Cook's really good back. Tight ends, Kincaid makes some plays. But I still think they're like they're very quarterback dependent, not like the mid-2000s Indianapolis Colts, for example. They had one of the great players we'd ever seen in Peyton Manning. But they also had other high-end stars playing with them, right? Reggie Wayne, Marvin Harrison, Dallas Clark. I mean, they just had, like, I don't really feel that when I'm watching the Bills. And to me, that is more of a compliment to what they're accomplishing for their quarterback. I mean, it's fucking remarkable. Like, most of the best quarterbacks in my life, whether it's Brady or Manning, are playing with Hall of Famers on offense. Brady, Randy Moss to Gronkowski to Wes Welker. Julian Edelman's not a Hall of Famer, but the guy won a Super Bowl MVP, elite slot receiver, right? And I'm watching this team, it's like, yeah, Cook, sweet, Pro Bowler, but are any of these other guys? And you find yourself in these situations. It's why, like, turnovers are killers. And sometimes I do think it's nice to kind of just fire everyone, lock them back in. But this is a tough loss. Division game at home. Big win by the Patriots. Big win by Mike Vrabel. Also just, the Patriots, I do think that Raider game, week 1, it's one of those, like, how the hell did that happen? The Patriots had that happen last year, week 1, against the Bengals. It's like, wait, Gerard Mayo and the Patriots and Jacoby Brissett beat the Cincinnati Bengals, and ultimately cost the Bengals the playoffs, right? They went 9-8. They were playing great at the end of the season, but they never shook that loss. For the Patriots, who I think will get right back in the playoff mix. I mean, technically they're 3-2 and they're right in the mix. But, like, if they play that Raider game 10 times, like right now, do they win that game 9 out of 10 times? And obviously Christian Gonzalez, they mentioned it tonight, is a high end corner. He's one of the rare guys. People think I'm picking on Sauce Gardner. I'm just not really into like uh, longer, slower press corners that don't have great ball skills and don't like to tackle. I would much rather have elite athletes on the outside, guys that can just mirror you, even if the knock on him is like, yeah, I don't know if he's the toughest guy. He's like, yeah, I'm paying this guy to cover. I'm paying this guy to stay in wide receiver's hip pocket. And when Christian Gonzalez is healthy, that's exactly what he can do. Like, yeah, in a perfect world, would I like to have Deion Sanders' cover ability with Richard Sherman's tackle ability? Yes. It's called like Jalen Ramsey in his prime 7 years ago. Not many humans exist like that. But you see what happens when you get Christian Gonzalez out there. It just slows down half the field. And then you're basically, your other 6, 7 guys in coverage can focus more in the other areas. And if you don't have elite players, it's on the quarterback to pull plays out of his you know what. And he was trying, but he couldn't do it. And you kind of felt Mike Vrabel's presence tonight. I mentioned this before we hit record to my guys. And listen, like Belichick, the negativity surrounding him right now is really, really high. Even though I don't understand everyone shitting on Belichick, like we saw week one, him playing TCU. Didn't we all agree? His team sucks. Like that is a bad football team. Did we expect him to win a lot of games after that? I don't know. I didn't. So it's like, oh, Clemson destroyed him. It's not going well for Belichick. Well, yeah, no shit. I didn't expect him to be in any of these games. Like after I saw week one, I'm like, I'm out. This is going to be long. There's no waiver wires in college. You're kind of stuck. Where, listen, I do think his personality when he's doing interviews and podcasts and he's with, Compton and Luan, obviously his personality is different. But in terms of him on the sideline, never smiles, kind of just feels like a dick. Like, I would not mess with this guy. He's kind of in the zone. Even when everyone's celebrating, he's screaming at them all to relax. And I do think as this goes on, the team will take on his personality because the one defining attribute of Vrabel teams in Tennessee was kind of overachieved. I mean, won a lot of games with Ryan freaking Tannehill. Now, as we're seeing all around the league, highly drafted guys can resurrect their career. Tannehill was a solid player, right? He was not like some 6th-round pick that they just found off the scrap heap. He was drafted in the 1st round. And they turned him into like an Alex Smith type player with Derrick Henry, with A.J. Brown, with good defense. And they were really good. But that's the way Mike Vrabel wants to play. He's kind of like the defensive version of like, Dan Campbell or something. Just total tough guy, very serious, great leader. But he's a defensive guy. Like he's a linebacker. And he's going to lean more conservative than all the offensive guys. But like, team's going to be good. And there was a reason a lot of people picked them, to be like a fringe wild card team, a team that could make the playoffs, especially when you looked at their schedule. It's because of him. It's because of that guy, right? And there is no greater turnaround you can have, probably in life, than going from a terrible head coach to a good one. You are immediately good, like that. Like overnight, you're good. All of a sudden, it was like after week one, even I thought this too. I'm like, I don't know about this. Now, 4 or 5 games later, I'm like 3-2, probably headed to 9-10 wins. And it's because of him. And then as you go on, you build up your quarterback. You build up some of these random guys. You get a guy like Diggs, get him motivated, chip on his shoulder, chance to play the Bills twice, celebrate his upcoming babies. Again, not substantiated, just some internet rumors. But that was really, really impressive. Overall, the Bills, listen, you could argue that they shouldn't have won that Ravens game week one. Eventually things kind of even themselves out, as the kids would say, ball don't lie. And you're 4-1. You just keep doing this every 5 games, you'll be fine. I've said this, though, over and over. It is extremely important for them, extremely important to have home field. And right now, them and like the Colts, I mean, they're right in the mix for the number 1 seed. But any going on the road to a team like obviously Kansas City, who we're going to see playing Monday night, Denver, I think they would like their chances going to Indy. But any of these outside, like playing in Buffalo, is a really big deal. And it's really opened up for them this year. So to take advantage of it, you just got to keep your foot to the pedal. And this type game that I would imagine that Sean McDermott's going to use to his advantage and coach their ass up and just be hard charging over this next week, because I don't want to say that they kind of came in feeling themselves, but listen, I say this all the time. These are human beings. So a coach can get up, and Belichick made a career out of this. He'd be playing like the 1-11 Dolphins, and he'd be up there circle jerking their punt coverage, and be like, Bill, but McCourty and Hightower, these guys are in the meeting room. They're watching the film. They're like, this team sucks. So it's a hard task to motivate players. Like, they got eyes. Like, they're human beings. Like, they can see the records. They know who's good and bad. And these Patriot guys, I remember Julian Edelman when I was on Colin's show at Fox. I had mentioned, like, hey, I like the 49ers this year. Not because I actually think they're that good. Technically, they're the number one seed right there with the Eagles right now. But because I think their schedule's a joke. And Edelman was like, don't ever say that. He's been taught by Belichick. But schedules kind of matter. There's a big difference playing the Chiefs, playing the Eagles, and playing the Rams than playing like, the bad teams, getting the Raiders, getting the Titans. Like, it's getting the Giants. There are teams that are more difficult. That's just a fact. Even though it's the NFL, they drive big cars or nice cars, live in big houses, and make a lot of money as well. But you are starting to see the haves and the have-nots in the NFL for sure as we move on. Speaking of that, we had two crazy games today. Denver, who I have in about 4 different parlays to win the division, I'd be lying if I'd said halfway through that game, I was like, not only do I not like this team anymore, I would say their playoff spots in trouble. Their quarterback looked like crap, getting worked. It was just a classic. It was a Picasso by Fangio. He was punking Sean Payton, but specifically the quarterback, who would just freak out, was missing wide receivers, just looked overwhelmed. And the Eagles, it looked like were going to cruise to a victory. And sometimes in the NFL, unlike college, you could be up 17-3 and in full control. Like, the other team doesn't even have life. And part of, the NFL, when you have a guy like Saquon Barkley, is keep giving him the ball. And like, part of what makes Vic Fangio a great coach, or Sean Payton, or McVay, or Kyle Shanahan, or an Andy Reid, or whoever, a great play caller, right? Offensively or defensively. They're going to have bad individual play calls. They're humans. This game's hard. Like, you're calling, if you're an offensive coordinator, you're making how many calls a game? 50 to 60 to 70, depending on that individual game. So you're not going to get it perfect on every call. But over the course of a game, your feel, your experience, your instincts, it's like as a player. It's no different a coach and a player in terms of instincts. You watch Stephon Diggs, you go, that guy is just a natural, instinctive player. You watch Christian Gonzalez travel with a wide receiver. You're like, that guy is just a natural athlete. His understanding for space, it just comes natural to him. It's no different than a play caller. And you're watching the Eagles, and there's just something off with their play calling. There just is. And you get back to, you have this coordinator who is under siege a little bit because he can't just call a good game. It doesn't mean he's not going to have a bad play call or two. But over the course of a game, it's like some great quarters and then just some awful quarters. Like, there's not much in between. And today they had an opportunity. It was a great play call. They had clearly schemed this up during the week. This double move for A.J. Brown. If they hit it, it's 24-3, and by all intents and purposes, the game would be over. It'd be nail in the coffin. There'd be a quarter left, but it wouldn't matter. They would not come back, not the way they were playing. And based on the final score, it would have been the game. But they missed, and then obviously the quotes from A.J. Brown and Jalen, they're not on the same page. I don't care what the franchise says. I don't care what Brandon Graham walked back. It's not even debatable at this point. That being said, like, Jalen Hurts is going to be your starting quarterback for the foreseeable future. And by all accounts, Schefter, Jay Glazer, because you know what Howie Roseman is not in the business of? Trading elite talents like A.J. Brown. And they are adamantly coming, we're not trading them. So these guys are going to have to figure this out. But they have this first-time play caller, this young guy. This isn't some, like, Kellen Moore. Even if you wanted to nitpick individual games, he had been an offensive coordinator for years with the Dallas Cowboys. Then he even got to leave the nest, because that was the only place he'd ever coached, and go to the Chargers and just coach a year with Justin Herbert. had a lot of experience kind of feeling it out. And you saw today, they're up 17-3 in the second half. Saquon Barkley had one carry because you have this first time coordinator who's caught in the middle of this emotional situation and he's trying to placate to everybody. Like, in no world can you have one of the best running backs in the league who's, listen, he's having a little bit of a hit or miss year, but he had a big touchdown in the game on a long pass. He had a couple explosive runs early in the game. Even if the Broncos are selling out to stop the run, like, run the ball, just slow down the game. You have this talented guy. Maybe he busts off a 6, 7, 8 yard run. All of a sudden on 2nd and 7, boom, you get a first down. You get to bleed a little bit more clock. Instead, they got extremely pass happy because it felt like they were trying to shut up all the podcasts, all the local media, and just the fans about the situation. And early in the game, it worked. Jalen hit Devontae, Jalen hit AJ. Their passing game kind of worked. But as the game went on, it completely sputtered out. But they extended the game because they got so pass happy and their passes weren't working and the time didn't run off the clock. So the Broncos got more possessions, and then I don't know how, but Bo Nix went from being a horrendous football player to like a high-end player, started leading them on drives, scoring touchdowns. But not only did Saquon Barkley have 6 carries, he had 1 carry in the second half. That's unacceptable. The Eagles had 11 total carries as a team. Jalen Hurts almost had 40 pass attempts. They were winning the game heading into the fourth quarter by multiple scores. So even if that number, the pass attempts, I think it was 38 or 39, is a little inflated because they got the ball, down 4 with whatever 45 seconds left and tried to drive the field. And even the play where everyone's freaking out about the pass interference. Here's where I stand on pass interference. You could argue it was. You could argue it wasn't. The ball was never going to be completed whether there was a defensive back there or not. It was a bad throw. The wide receiver and the quarterback were not on the same page. So I hate rewarding awful throws. One thing that used to happen when I was a kid that for whatever reason just doesn't happen anymore, when you would airmail a wide receiver and there would be pass interference, a referee would go like this, and it would be this thing called uncatchable, and the pass interference wouldn't count because, we're not going to bail you out for a shit throw just because the defensive guy made a bad play. That has clearly been thrown out the window, and people just complain now. But, it was a massive win by Denver because early in that game, Tony Romo. I was thinking today, listen to Tony and Jim. I don't even think I've had their audio on throughout this season because I'm like, I don't think I've really listened to much Tony Romo this year. I thought they were pretty good. That was a lighthearted, just kind of fun. Had no issues with the broadcast team of those two. But Tony hammered home that Sean Payton had been telling them that it was a really big deal. I think I'd written it down that teams with a road game, then leaving from that road game to go play a London game, were 2-14. So basically, teams that had packed up for 2 weeks to leave, or a week and a half or whatever, however many days you want to consider it, 10 days on the road. If you're leaving on Friday or Saturday and you're not coming back till the following, Sunday night, Monday, had been terrible, which kind of understandable. So they had made a huge emphasis about it during the week. And then you're watching they're just getting their ass kicked. That clearly didn't matter. But then they win it, and all of a sudden you're like, God, now they feel kind of good because their defense is solid. Their defense is good. But Bo Nix, a little like Jalen Hurts, is like Mr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's like, what are you going to get here? Are we getting the good guy or are we getting the bad guy? Because when he's good, he's really good. When he's bad, he's atrocious. You go 3 and out. You throw go routes, and the difference, Jalen is a good deep ball thrower. You watch Bo Nix, and he has these guys open on deep breaking routes, whether they're go routes or post routes, and he's overthrowing them by 3 or 4 yards. It's not even close. The guy couldn't even, if he was like Kevin Garnett and could jump like he was Russell Westbrook in his prime, wouldn't even get a fingertip on the football. So one thing, the Broncos, if they are going to go to where their aspirations, the way that they talked about, led by the head coach this offseason, specifically training camp, they're going to need to figure out to get some of these explosive pass plays that are schemed up and that are there, and that for whatever reason their quarterback can't hit. And the Eagles, like, there is no fixing this. To me, your coordinator either had, like, Vic Fangio is just natural at it. And you know what? I've been watching him for a long time. He's been natural at it for a long time because your instincts as a play caller, there are certain people in life, right? If you're in sales, one of my good friends from when I was young and through college, I went to his 40th birthday party, and he's got a bunch of friends that I don't really know, a bunch of successful people in the Bay Area. A lot of them are in sales. And like a lot of these guys have been crushing it. I mean, making way more money than they probably ever dreamed of since their mid 20s because they just got in these sales roles and they could just fucking close deals. It kind of came naturally to them. And some people can close deals and some people can't, right? Some people can call plays and some people can't. It's why Andy Reid has won a lot of games with a lot of different quarterbacks. Kyle Shanahan just beat Sean McVay with Mac freaking Jones on a sprained PCL. Why? He's a natural play caller. You watch this Kevin Patola guy. Sure, he's a nice guy. Sure, everyone likes him. I know Nick Sirianni likes him. They've known each other for 15 plus years. He's just not that good. It doesn't mean, and here's the other thing, it doesn't mean that you don't know offense. I had a scout, he's not even a scout, he's like a number two for a team, describe it to me this way. He's like, if you got every quarterback in the NFL, every single one, starters and backups, and you got them in the room with offensive coordinators and head coaches that were offensive guys, and they just did football on the whiteboard, you wouldn't really be able to tell the difference. Like of Peyton Manning to Baker Mayfield to Kevin Patola to Sean McVay. They would all blow you away by the shit they know. Whiteboard pen, and you went and walked it through on the field. You'd be like, God, all these guys, like, these guys are all incredible. I'm talking backup starters, quarterback coaches. But then the games start, and then it starts separating. Like the ability, because even in practice, training camp practices, hell, joint practices, you can't tackle me, and I know it. So anyone that's ever had been lucky enough, if you're a season ticket holder, to go to one of these practices, you know it's like, oh, that would have been a sack. And then the guy keeps scrambling little bit more and hits the wide receiver for another 50 yards. Like, what a play. And then later that day, the team tweets it out. This is like mid-August. You're like, what a catch by the third-round rookie. It's like, yeah, the guy was sacked like 7 seconds ago. Won the games, Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday. That would be a sack. Or maybe it wouldn't be because the quarterback can process so fast he gets rid of the ball, throws the ball away, or hits it to his check down. And that's when everything separates. And that's when all these quarterbacks separate. The guys that can process it quick, the guy that understands it, the guy that has the great instincts and the feel for the pocket, the play callers that understand how to adjust on the fly, what's working, what's not working, that understand their own scheme, that knows the strengths and weaknesses of their opponents. You know, one huge disadvantage, for example, Belichick has is he doesn't know any of these coaches. So when he's going up against different offensive coordinators, he doesn't know their history. Now, he could have studied it this offseason, but when Bill Belichick went against Andy Reid or Sean McVay or you name it, Brian Schottenheimer or Liam Cohen or whoever, he knew everything about every single player on their roster. Why? Because he had scouted them all coming out. And for most of these coaches, he had coached against them before. And if they were a first-time coordinator, he had coached against their scheme because they had came from somewhere. So the history of like Andy Reid, Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick, their understanding of just the opponent is pretty high. It doesn't mean you're going to take advantage of it if you don't have the players, i.e. Pete Carroll, but you got a pretty good feel for everyone you're going up against. And, you know, you see a first-time coordinator, like, they just don't have a feel. They just don't really know what they're doing. They just, something's off. And listen, some are worse than others. And I'm not saying Kevin Patola was like the worst coordinator I've ever seen. But I think we just have to acknowledge, like, something's off. Like, we've all been watching football long enough. You watch him coach, like today against Denver, and you go, there's good, and there's not good. It's just a bizarre experience. And I think it's pretty clear something isn't working. On the flip side, I think one thing that's pretty cool about this era that we're in is watching these guys resurrect their careers. Like Sam Darnold's just a good player. You know, like last year wasn't a fluke. Watching him today and watching him this season, like Sam Darnold is good. Baker Mayfield now has years, right? Like 2 years and then this year. Like we're on 2 years and 5 games. I'm like, I'm fucking good. I am one of the best players in the NFL. I'm watching those two guys thinking like, this was the number one pick in the draft. This was the number three pick in the draft. That's what it's supposed to look like. And it's taken these guys on different paths. Listen, whenever someone asks me for advice, I've been there before of not having it when you're being 20, 21, 25. All of our paths are different. My path different than your path, different than the next guy's path. And if you are talented enough, if you are willing to go above and beyond, if you're willing to not quit, right? If Sam Darnold would have been like, yeah, I'm just kind of over, I'll just be a backup. Would anyone have blamed him? Like, I'm just cool with being a backup for like the next 10 years. But those guys just kind of kept their head down. They finally got in the right situations and they have thrived. And watching that game today, I texted someone this today. It felt like watching a college game that had two guys that are going to be drafted in the top 10. Like that, what a fun experience to just sit on the couch and watch these two guys play football. Big play after big play. And typically, I'm anti bad defense, but here's the thing. I know Todd Bowles is one of the best defensive coaches in the league. I know Mike McDonald's one of the best defensive coaches in the league. I just thought that was like elite quarterback play. And how many times Sam did it more than Baker, but like they would drop back, nothing would be there, they'd be getting pressure, and they would just make shit happen with their legs, scramble around, and then make a great pass. Sam Darnold's ability to ad lib today was just fantastic. Same with Baker. And the two star wide receivers, both Ohio State guys. Colin and I talked about it. Neither guy's a top 10 pick. Both guys were like, this guy's a really good player, but he's a little slow. He's a little small. They're dominant players. You know why? Because if you can get open, I'm watching Keenan Allen today. Keenan Allen, he's probably faster than me, but not that much faster, right? He is not. If you time Keenan Allen to run the 40 right now, my guess would be like 4.88, 4.92. But you know what doesn't matter? His 40 time when he's running an in-breaking route or running a quick out or running an option route. You know why? Because Keenan Allen knows how to find open space. He's a great route runner. He's an instinctive player. Devontae Adams is kind of like the younger, probably a little faster version of that as well. Devontae Adams not a burner, but he can get open, and he'll be able to get open until he can't walk anymore, right? So both those two guys are great examples of if you can get open, if you can run routes, there'll be a place for you for a long time in the NFL. And watching Keenan still make a ton of plays is fun to watch because it's enjoyable to see a guy that isn't that fast dominate. And watching those two guys from Ohio State and watching those two quarterbacks was just a blast. And listen, you look at the NFC right now. The 49ers had a great day. I went on with Colin, and I just assumed the Arizona Cardinals had won. When we got off, one of the producers was like, the Titans won that game. I'm like, the football game? Titans won the football game? Like today? The one that happened earlier? Like, yeah. So the Arizona Cardinals, who just somehow crumbled in that game. Pretty crazy. I mean, luck on the dude dropped it at the goal line. I mean, anytime that happens, I would imagine if we did a study of times that a player had dropped a touchdown at the goal line, their team's record. If I had to guess sitting here right now, it's like 0-10. Like you lose 100% of the time, your player does that. But the Cardinals also had the interception that the dude fumbled, which again, I wasn't watching the game live. I had to go back and watch the highlights. On that interception, I guess you don't have to make a football move when you're picking it off like you do when you're an offensive player. Thought like maybe they could have challenged it, like it wasn't even an interception when it hit the ground, but clearly they did. Gets kicked in the end zone. Titans fall on it. Just a batshit crazy game. I mean, that's got to be the craziest game so far this season. I mean, the Seattle Tampa game was crazy in the sense of these two quarterbacks gunslinging. That was just like, wait, the Titans? I still can't get over the Titans won that game, but right now the Niners technically are the number one seed with Philly, Tampa, and Detroit. I don't know if the Niners can sustain this, given that half their team is literally injured, and we know for a fact that the other half will get injured. I would say Seattle, like I would still be pretty bullish on Seattle. The Rams are not going away. Packers, pretty big wild card. Would not sell all my stock. And, and watching Washington today, like as long as they got that quarterback, they're not going to go quietly. So my one take with the NFC, because for the last several years, like Lamar, Josh, Patrick, and then obviously if Burrow had the right team, Burrow, it's like those guys are just going to be tough to beat. How are you going to bet against? Typically, it's been Patrick Mahomes, but if any of the other guys had made it to the Super Bowl, you would have bet on Lamar and the Ravens a couple years ago. You would have bet on the Bills last year, like their teams, just because of those quarterbacks. But you look at the NFC, again, they all kind of got some flaws, but it's pretty tough, and it's going to be wide freaking open come the NFC playoffs because the injuries are going to play a massive factor. They currently are playing a massive factor. Team that's kind of flying under the radar a little bit is the Lions. Like you're going to look up and the Lions are going to be like 13-4 and be a mother come the playoffs. Uh, Anything else? People, I know the porta potty Panthers, as we called them last year. I said this last week. The Saints are not that terrible. They're not going to have a good record, but like they're not that bad of a team because their offense is pretty explosive. Now, the Giants had about 25 turnovers today. Uh, Obviously, Dart was started fast, got a little weird in the middle of the game. Scattaboo had a fumble that it felt like I was kind of hoping Scattaboo would take his helmet and like fling it, but he kind of held his emotions. And the Saints have good offensive players. Somehow the Titans came back from the dead and won a game. Uh, the Jets, to me, at through the first 5 weeks, the Dolphins lost today to the Panthers, who probably are the same type team, probably a little feistier than you think. Neither are that good, but neither are a total embarrassment. The Jets, the final score I think is 37-22. They were down 30-6 in the fourth quarter. It is, it's pretty crazy how shitty they are. Because I thought signing Justin Fields to that contract was pretty insane, but they still had good players. They had a good young tackle. They had a star wide receiver. They got a couple running backs. They got good defensive players. And you're watching them, you're like, these guys just suck. Like, I understand watching the Titans, like, yeah, they're not very good. They don't have a ton of guys that other teams would want. But you watch the Jets, like, if they're healthy, how many guys on their roster individually would the Niners, the Eagles, Tampa Bay, Detroit, Seattle, the Rams, the Packers, Washington want? I mean, a ton. They would want a ton of their players. Yet, this is what makes football such a great sport. It's not about the individual players. We have seen a lot of teams over the years with good individual players absolutely stink. And that's what it happens in college all the time. You're like, God, this team is. Look at Penn State. Like, you went 8-4, and it happens every once in a while. A lot of times in the NFL, just a team like the Patriots last year or the Giants last year, like a team with not that many good players lose. Then you have the Jets. You're like, I'm pretty sure you got a lot of good players, and they look destined to not be good at all. So they're going to get the porta potty award. I mean, that's Ryder Cup level humidity, afternoon wave. That smells. That stinks. That's the porta potty Jets. They'll get that honor for the week. A couple other quick things before we get out of here. I think we just have to acknowledge, and I'm not like I saw a mock draft last week on the Athletic, not by one of their main guys, a guy I'd never heard of, but still, like it was up on the website that had Arch Manning. It was a first round mock as pick 28, and this was before the Florida game. And I said, listen, I don't pretend to be an NFL scout anymore. That's a long time ago. I'm just a podcaster. But I do watch football for a living. I have a ton of close friends in the profession. And I got a pretty good idea. Doesn't mean I'm going to be right on every player. But I can tell you pretty solidly, especially with a quarterback, like, yeah, this guy's going to go in the top 50 picks or like no chance based on right now. There is not a chance on God's green earth before the Florida game that Arch Manning would have gone in the first round. Not one. Like 0% chance. There is less than a 0% chance after the Florida game. that he would go in the first round. I'm not saying he wouldn't get drafted, but he would not get drafted. I mean, second round, no chance. Third round, no chance. I think he would be crazy using a fourth. I mean, this guy's not a draftable player. I think there would be a lot of teams like, yeah, I'm not drafting. He's not a good player. We're watching him play in college football, and he's not very good. Is he injured? Is he just overrated? Listen, I don't know anyone with the Texas program. I don't have inside information on this. I'm just more like most of you. I've just turned on the television, and I actually didn't even watch much of this game live because I was watching my guy at UCLA ruin James Franklin's career. But I went back last night. We flew home from California. I was laying in bed at 11. We got home at like 10:30. Couldn't really sleep, and I'm like, you know what? I know me and Colin, I'm sure, are going to talk about Arch. Let's type in Arch, all of his plays and all of his highlights. Well, not highlights, but just his plays, his offensive snaps from the Florida game. And I came away. I'm like, this is just not good. And I've told this to Colin. I've said this to a bunch of people that asked me over the weekend. I don't believe he's going to be at the University of Texas. One of my good friends, my college roommate, lives in Austin, and he actually is in business with Carson Palmer's brother Jordan. He goes to a lot of Texas games, and even he was trying to be bullish. He's like, I'm telling you, I think Arch is going to turn this thing around. And he's because I think a lot of people in that community are rooting for him. It's a cool story. And he texted me like midway through the game. I think he was at the airport, like having a beer. He's like, God, this guy stinks. I'm like, yeah, he does. This isn't like I would love for this guy to be good. But there was a pass that DJ Lagway had in the game where he threw like a bomb down the middle of the field. You're like, that's talent. It's like I've watched enough Colts this year to go like, listen, I was probably wrong on Daniel Jones because he's more physically gifted than I realized. He throws the ball better than I thought. He had a throw today against the Raiders in the red zone where he scrambled to his right and let it rip. You're like, I'm not saying like that's Josh Allen because Josh Allen's throwing 100 miles an hour, but that throw was like 96 miles an hour. If we were doing the baseball comp, like that's pretty like his physical attributes really translate. I'm watching Arch's physical attributes just relative to the SEC. They don't translate. I'm flipping the channels yesterday, going to the Diego Pavia and Ty Simpson, Alabama. Like those guys are in a different world than him. So for all the hype or whatever, and listen, this happens sometimes. There's never been anything quite like this, a preseason Heisman, just because of his last name. But just an all-time disaster. And speaking of disasters, I'd be lying to you if I didn't type into YouTube this morning when I was on a walk, Penn State podcast, and just listen to the reaction of just some local young guys that were just letting it fly. It's like I just inject this shit into my veins. Tim Skipper, and I've said this for a long time to people in the business, he's easily one of the best coaches I've ever been around. When I was a GA at Fresno State, he was he was a running back coach, he was a linebacker coach, assistant defensive coordinator. Every single player that was around him at Fresno State would swear by him, not just as a coach, but as a guy and as a man. He's a fucking stud. I love Tim Skipper. His brother Kelly is the running back coach for the Bills, and his dad is now retired in actually Arizona. Longtime NFL coach. He's a football lifer. He was an excellent like All American linebacker in the late '90s at Fresno State. His brother Kelly was a running back, I think in the late '80s, early '90s at Fresno State. They're a football family. And I've always thought he kind of got the short end of the stick with some stuff. He was a coach at Florida with Jim McElwain. He was the interim coach last year at Fresno State. I thought he should get the job. They didn't give it to him. It really pissed me off. Deshaun Foster, his dad coached him in Carolina like 20 years ago, maybe a little less than that. And Deshaun has said, like, I'm like a fourth Skipper brother, third Skipper brother. So they're very, very close. And he brings him in. And then obviously Deshaun gets fired and they give Tim Skipper the interim job. And then I wasn't really even following it the way they elevated Jerry Neuheisel, who used to be, I think, the backup quarterback for Josh Rosen and was like a second, third string quarterback in his college career. Obviously, his dad, Rick, former UCLA coach, talks just like him, the blonde locks, is calling play. So you got Tim Skipper and Jerry Neuheisel going up against James Franklin with the highest paid coaching staff currently in college football. Jim Knowles, who left Ohio State last year after winning the national championship to go to Penn State, is the highest paid defensive coordinator in the country. I do believe that when you set your sights specifically on one regular season game, in college football that is no longer a regular season sport. You can have several losses and make the playoffs. Yet Penn State treated Oregon like it was 1998 or 2007. That if you lose one game, you're probably done. Instead, it's not the end of the world. Now, it felt like the end of the world because James Franklin can't beat a good team and Penn State can never win that game. And it was at home, the whiteout. It didn't really change that much. They still controlled everything. But the way they had built up for that game and then the letdown in the way they had lost, I say this all the time about the NFL. These are humans. And hell, these are 18, 19, 20. Do you think that the Penn State players were that focused on UCLA? Not a chance in hell. Do you think the coaches were as locked in as they would have been had they won that Oregon? No chance. Well, who really tried? Tim Skipper, who's trying to prove himself, that can't get a head coaching job even though he's worthy of it. He's a fucking stud, and his references are elite. Everyone swears by the guy. He had that team ready to go. Jerry Neuheisel, who's a tight end quarterback coach, he's got his dad in the CBS studios in tears, running Nico Amolava, can't even say his last name, who everyone's making fun of. Nico has been the butt of everyone's jokes all college football season. He takes less money. He goes to UCLA, one of the worst teams in the country. The team had scored 57 points on the season. They scored 42 against Penn State. It's one of the biggest upsets of my life. There have been bigger upsets numerically, right, by the point spread, like Stanford, I think, was a 40-point underdog when Jim Harbaugh beat Pete Carroll. I don't know what the point spread was on Appalachian State beating Michigan, but like obviously it was a really big deal. Yeah, NIU last year against Notre Dame. We have had some individual crazy ones in like a one-off situation. I would also say this. Non-conference games, NIU, Notre Dame, Appalachian State, Michigan, that can happen. Like Stanford, USC, like that's pretty banana. Penn State going to UCLA, knowing that they still have everything in front of them to lose that game, I just don't think you shake it. There are certain things, and we'll get into Mark Sanchez here in a second, you just can't shake. And this is one of those. Obviously, there are variables like buyouts and James Franklin, 56, depending on, this isn't like, I don't think you can just type it in and get the specific number from Penn State, but based on reports I've read, it's somewhere between 50 and $55 million, which in this landscape is a lot of money. And as some of the podcasts I listened to today said, if buyouts did not exist, James Franklin would have been fired right after the UCLA game because you can lose the Oregon game. Hell, James Franklin has made a career of losing the Oregon game. You can never lose the UCLA game. And some people thought it's one of the worst losses in the history of the program, definitely in the modern era. But when you're paying a guy this much money, when you're paying a team this much money, and when you're paying coaching staffs this much money, losing a game like that can be a nail in a career. At Penn State doesn't mean that he couldn't go. If you're Florida, like you'd be interested in James Franklin. You would love, if you're Florida, for James Franklin to do what he did at Penn State for you, even if you never beat Alabama or Georgia. Just get me in the playoffs. And people kept saying, well, hey, we make the playoffs. The stats came out on Penn State that if the playoffs had been around before the 12-teamer over the last 10 years, Penn State would have made it like 5 out of 8 years. So, like, they had been doing the same thing over and over. And for the first time, it's like, maybe it's done. And in this landscape of paying players, maybe they tune you out faster. I don't know. But congrats to my guy, Tim Skipper. And I'll end on this. I saw that the story break like most people when we were in the car driving from Napa to Davis to go to our family baby shower. Well, her baby shower. Even though I said that to her, she's like, well, it's your baby too. I'm like, yeah, well, if my buddy wouldn't have been getting married, I never would have come on this trip, but that's neither here nor there. Baby shower was fun. A little hungover, but I made it through. Schefter, people put out, TMZ puts out that Mark Sanchez had been in a altercation and been stabbed, like been robbed, and then more information came out that he got attacked. And then we're 24 hours later, and now the stories come out that looks pretty bad for Mark Sanchez, who was obviously arrested for attacking a guy. And my overall takeaway is this, because I don't have any more information than any of you that have just read the stories online. That when you make decisions with alcohol and potentially drugs, because obviously alcohol can be a powerful thing if you have a little too much, you not make insane decisions. But based on people that I know that have been around Mark Sanchez in his playing career, they fucking love the guy. I know people that were around him in Philly, know people that were around him in Chicago. I've never heard a bad thing about the guy. And I hear a lot of bad things about a lot of people. I'm a scout at heart, so I'm always asking people about other people. And this moment, whatever was in his body, alcohol plus whatever, if that's the case, gonna change the guy's life forever. And I was thinking about this. He got lucky that in Indianapolis, this guy that he attacked, who was just working his job, if that would have happened where I live in Arizona or in states like Texas or the South, there is a very good likelihood that when that guy got to like protect himself, it wouldn't have been a knife, it would have been a gun. And he would have fucking put several inside of him and probably killed him on the spot. And it just shows you, and I think about this. I'm about to have a kid. I know Mark Sanchez has a kid. When you when you get the opportunity and life is going your way, and Mark Sanchez had a pretty freaking good life. Played in the NFL for a long time. Now calls games for Fox, probably making, I mean, I would imagine maybe $1 million to work 17 days a year and to travel to some different cities and obviously have some cocktails on Friday nights before the game. And when one, drunk induced whatever decision, you just throw your whole life away. And I think about this a lot. Obviously, my perspective has changed dramatically. Having about 3 months away from having a child, and a lot of people listening to this have kids, or thinking about having kids, or maybe have a kid on the way, or maybe about to get married, and more people that come in your life that depend on you. That your consequences affect a lot of people, or your actions that have consequences impact a lot of other people. If I make a devastating mistake, it no longer just impacts me. It would impact my wife. It would impact my child. It would impact the home that we share together. I mean, it has massive consequences. And obviously, this is about you see the picture, the still shot of the guy in the hospital that he attacked. And here's the thing: I've spent, I mean, probably in my life 50 days in Indianapolis when I was working in the NFL. Probably three different combines at 6, 7 days. I've gone to the combine multiple times at 4 or 5 days since working in the media, maybe three different times. So maybe 35 days in Indianapolis. It's a pretty easygoing place. I've been to a lot of cities where you're kind of looking over your shoulder, especially late at night. Probably walking home to the hotel a little bit late. Indianapolis is not one of those places. I have never thought twice, and I've had a lot of late nights in all those nights that I've spent in Indianapolis. I've had some nights where I get home at 3 or 4 in the morning. So I have a lot of coaches and scouts over the years, and that's the last thing that crossed my mind ever was something weird happening because it's not really in my experience, especially where he's staying, the Westin or the Marriott, where that's going down, and where this guy who's just working at the hotel probably never crossed his mind either. So just don't be a fucking idiot and lay off the drugs. That's my advice for the night.